Beginning in lesson 63, we teach the first graders about the R-controlled vowels. But of course, it's not very fun to say an R-controlled vowel in first grade, so instead I call them the Bossy R words. And R, our bossy letter, I'm going to characterize for the kids. So it starts with her having long eyelashes, and maybe she has a pointy little nose, but she also has a mean eyebrow, and she's got a frowny face. Because she's mean and she likes to boss the other letters around. The other piece of this that's really important for Bossy R are her pointy, bossy boots. So I tell the kids she has red, pointy, bossy boots that she puts on every morning before she leaves. And they've got sharp points. So we've got one boot there and one boot there. And the first letter that she's going to boss around is poor little letter E. So each of these stories with the vowels, with R bossing the vowels, is going to start at the playground. She's going to find all of these vowels at the playground before she bosses them to do something. So let's suppose letter E is at the playground, and he's playing hopscotch. And as he plays hopscotch, he's just making his sound. Eh, 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 eh. And he's having so much fun. Letter R decides she doesn't really like letter E saying eh, eh, eh. So she comes and stands next to him and says, letter E, I don't like you saying eh. I want you to say my sound, And letter E says, but I don't want to say I say eh. And she says, if you don't say my sound, I'll stomp on your toe with my red bossy boot. And he says, no, eh. And she says, okay, stomp. And letter E is so startled and so surprised that he says, which is why from now on, when you see an E next to a Bossy R, he doesn't say eh, eh, eh. He says and we're going to arc it to show they go together. They say and we'll code it on our sign as well. The next lesson in which R bosses a vowel is lesson 71, when we have little vowel A. So for this one, I might say A is at the playground, and she's swinging back and forth saying her sound. Ah, 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 ah. And along comes Bossy R. And she decides, I don't really like letter A saying ah, ah, ah. She walks over to her and says, letter A, I don't like you saying ah. I think when you're with me, I want you to say my name, R, R, R. And letter A says, but I don't want to say R, I say ah. And letter R puts her hands on her hips and says, if you don't say my name, I'll stomp on your toe. And letter A says, no, I say ah. And letter R goes, stomp. And letter A is so startled and hurt that she goes, R, 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 R. Which is why from now on, when you see A with R, it will say R, R, R. Code it with an arc. And we do it on the sign. The next one is the easiest of the R-controlled vowels, letter O. For this one, I tell the kids something like, letter O was on the playground, and he was doing jump rope. Ah, 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 ah. And as letter R heard letter O jump roping and saying ah, she decided she didn't like that, went up to him and said, letter O, when you're with me, you need to shape your mouth like an O and say, O, O, or, and say O instead of ah. Letter O didn't want to do it. He likes saying ah, 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 but he decided, okay, I don't want to get my toe stomped on like the other letters did. So when he's with letter R, he will say or, and if you do it correctly, your mouth will be shaped like a letter O to cue the kids to say or, and we code it with an arc. The next one is little letter I, and of course I is the littlest letter of the alphabet, so she's also kind of timid and scared. Letter I was at the playground, and she was going down the slide. Saying her short sound. When who comes along but bossy letter R? And decided, I don't like I to say I. Went up to her and said, little I, when you're with me, I want you to say my sound, And little I said, I don't want to say I say I. Letter R, of course, got mad, put her hands on her hips and said, if you don't say my sound, I'll stomp on your toes. And letter I said, no, you can't make me. So letter R took her big bossy boot and went stomp. Stomped on little letter I's toe for I to say And now, when I and R are together, they say Code it with an arc. Just like letter E said The last one is my favorite one to teach, because I teach the kids that letter U is the toughest letter in the alphabet. He thinks we'll give him some facial features there. He thinks that because he wakes up every morning and puts on black leather pants and a black leather jacket and black boots and a black helmet with spikes coming out the top, that he's pretty tough. And when he opens his door and walks outside, he makes his tough guy sound. He's a pretty tough guy. Well, one day, letter R heard him walking around the playground saying, and she decided that she wanted to be tougher than him. So she went up to him and said, letter U, you're not so tough. When you're with me, I want you to say my sound, And he said, no. And she put her hands on her hips and said, if you don't say my sound, I'll stomp on your toe. And he said, try it. So she took her bossy boot and she stomped on his toe, and he said, ow! Not saying So she took her boot, she picked it up even higher, and she stomped hard. Ow! Letter U still didn't say the sound, so she took both her bossy boots. She lifted up her legs and went stomp, stomped on both of his toes, and he said, And he finally said too. Letter U with letter R says We code it with an arc, we code it with an arc. And it's on purpose that these three are in the bottom row because they all say where AR and OR say R and OR. They say different sounds. They're in a different location. You can also draw the features on the Bossy R here with the little boots and the eyelashes and the mean eyebrows to make it more fun for the kids to remember. But that's the set of stories that I tell to teach Bossy R.